Hi, welcome to the second lesson for your ISU in MAP 4C1. This one's section 8.2 in your textbook, and it's about renting a home. By the end of this, you should be able to gather, interpret, compare information about owning or renting accommodations, and to be able to solve problems about the expenses and the costs that are involved in renting a home. Let's look at some of the key terms that we will be dealing with. One of them is about utilities. Now, the utilities in a home are just those things that help you run the home properly. So, for example, gas, electricity, and water are utilities in a home that allow for heating and for other types of actions in the home. Depending on the home that you get, these utility costs could be very high or very low. For example, if you're heating with something like natural gas versus heating with oil versus heating with a boiler, the costs associated with those will be very different. And that's something you should consider when you're looking at renting a home. The other thing you should be familiar with are the terms fixed expenses and variable expenses. And as you can see from the chart that we have here, there's many different expenses that you could potentially have with a home. When we talk about fixed expenses and variable expenses, all we're really talking about is looking at, are these consistent? So for gas, we're looking at this being a fixed expense because we know that we're going to be paying $120.10 every single month. For water, it's going to be a variable expense because we don't know the exact amount that we're actually paying. And as you can see, these are all different here. So that's just the difference between a fixed expense and a variable expense. So let's quickly go through here. Telephone, it looks like we pay the same amount each month. Rent, fixed expense again, we're paying the same amount. Car, same thing. And then when we look at electricity, we see that electricity will be a variable expense here. And that just makes sense because electricity is based on the amount that you actually use in your home. And it's a way that you can cut some costs. Let's look at an example that you might get when you're working through this section. Olivia and Caitlin rent a 2-bedroom townhouse. The rent for the townhouse is $985 per month. Every month they receive a cable TV bill for $58.10 and a telephone bill for $35. Every 2 months they get an electricity bill, the average is $240. 4 months a water bill for $200, and they have apartment insurance that costs $17.44 per month. So what we want to be able to do is we want to use a little bit of technology to help us out with our expenses. So part A says set up a spreadsheet to calculate the total costs per month and their annual cost per expense. So one of the spreadsheets that you can use is Microsoft Excel. OpenOffice has a calc version of a spreadsheet, but there's lots of spreadsheets available. So let's go over to the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And you can see I've already set up a little bit of the spreadsheet here. So on the side I've listed all the months throughout the year, and along the top I've listed some of the expenses dealing with an apartment. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to be able to fill these things down. Okay, so quickly what I'm going to do here is for the rent, I know that it's $985 every month. So I'm just going to grab the little handle at the corner, and I'll do this again and drag down, and that gets me the rest of the rent for the rest of the year. So again, it's this little corner in the bottom right of the cell that you've highlighted. You can see I've got a big fat plus sign there, but when I hover over it, it changes to a small skinny plus sign. And then I'm just going to click and hold the mouse button, drag down. Right, and I can do this across 2 cells if I really want. Click the 2 of them, drag down, and you can see the rest of the numbers fill in. Now electricity was a little bit different. I think they said that it was bi-monthly. Let's check really quickly. So every 2 months they receive an electricity bill, $240. So when I go back here, I have to understand that each of these is going to be $240. So sometimes it's easier just to type this in every 2 months. Just using the number pad to type in the values here. And then water, I think water said it was every 4 months, but let's take a quick check. Every 4 months they receive a water bill for approximately $200. Okay, so every 4 months. Okay, and I already have the insurance in there. So I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 expenses here. And we'll look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 expenses here. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to tally up these. So we're just going to do a quick sum here. So there's two ways you can do a sum. One is to push the equal sign. And you can see that what happens with Excel is it knows that you're entering a formula. So I'm going to put the sum, and I'll put a bracket there. And that allows me to just highlight. So I'm just using the left mouse button here and holding it. Highlight the cells that I want to add up. All right? And you can see I've got a sum there. Now I get all these little hashtags happening here. And you might wonder why that is. Usually it's just because the cell isn't wide enough to fit the number. So you can see as I've gone up, I've moved the cell. And once I've moved it to a larger amount, then I get the value showing up. Okay. And again, what I can do is I can go to the little fill handle, which is the bottom right corner. And I can just click on it and drag over. And what it does is it copies the formula, but it changes the cell addresses. So it will actually sum up column C. If I move over, sum up column D, column E, column F, and column G. So it does it for you. Okay, now let's look at the monthly expenses. So that's the annual expenses that I did along the bottom. So that's for the year. And then the monthly expenses over here. And I'll show you a different way to sum. So I'll go up to this little icon up here. It looks like a fancy letter E, and that's a sum formula. And I'm just going to click on that. And what it does is it gives me what it thinks is the things that I want to add up. Potentially this could be a quick way to do things in Excel. Sometimes it doesn't realize what you want to add up and it adds up the wrong things. So you just have to be careful and make sure that you check the formula. This is going from B2, which is this cell right here, over to G2. You can see it's all highlighted there. It looks like I'm good, so I'm just going to push enter, and it should put my monthly expenses in there. So that's my monthly expenses for January. And I'll drag the fill handle down here, and it's got my monthly expenses total. Right? Maybe I'll do a quick sum over here at the end, and it says I'm summing up all the months. I push enter, so I know the exact amount that I'm spending for the entire year. Alright, let's go back and check out some of our questions that we were dealing with. So set up a spreadsheet to calculate the total cost per month and their annual cost expense. We're good. Got that. Okay. And then what is the range of their monthly expenses? And finding out the range is very important because you have to know how much you're going to, what's the maximum amount you're going to spend and what's the least amount you're going to spend each month. So let's look through here quickly. It looks like $1,095 is one of the lower amounts here. And it looks like about $1,535 is the highest amount. And you can see those are in the months that occur when we actually have to pay the electricity and the water bill. And that makes sense. So I have my ranges there, $1095.54. Let's write that in here for the question. $1095. And that will go to... have to get the cents here in a minute. 54. Alright. And let's figure out exactly what we're looking in here. 1535.54. Right. So that's the range that we have there, and we can tell that when we subtract these two things, we actually end up with a range of about $440. So the issue is that we have to, when we look at our expenses and look at the income that we have coming in, we have to be able to afford this range of $400, knowing that some months we're going to have to pay a lot more, and other months we're going to have to pay less. Let's look at question C. How much will they spend on accommodation costs in 1 year to the nearest $1,000? Well, this is what spreadsheets are great for, because I've already added everything up, and I know that our expenses are going to come to $15,186.48 for the whole year. And so I don't even have to worry too much about doing any of the adding myself. The spreadsheet has done it for me. And this is to the nearest $1,000. So about $15,000 is what we're going to spend just on our housing for the year. It says some financial planners suggest that 1 month's accommodation expenses should not exceed 1 week's net income. If this is recommended, what should be the minimum amount of their combined weekly net income? Well, in order to plan properly, you have to actually pick out the largest amount that's here. So we've already got the range here, but I'm not going to pick out the $1,095 because if I'm only making that much in 1 week, I'm going to have trouble covering the $1,535 month that's here. So when you're planning on budgeting for expenses, what you want to do is you want to round up a little bit or take higher values so that you're never short the money. So let's extend the page a little bit, and then quickly I will just add in here that our 1 week's net income should be a minimum of $1,535.54. And that's it for this lesson. Good luck with your ISU.